All right, everybody. Hey, welcome back. Today's guest is Stacey Hylen, business growth strategist, internationally recognized coach, keynote speaker, and the architect of At a Zero Without Hustle framework. With over 2 decades of experience and a background leading Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes Business Mastery Consulting, Stacey specializes in helping high-achieving entrepreneurs uncover hidden profits in their business, optimize strategy, and scale without sacrificing time, energy, or values. In this conversation here today, we're going to be exploring how leaders can increase revenue without more marketing, how AI can be used strategically to personalize and accelerate growth, and how a business can support your life instead of consume it. If you're tired of the feast or famine cycle and want real systems that generate clarity, profit, and presence, then this episode is for you. Stacey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Every moment tests you. Every action defines you. This is the prestigious initiative where mindset becomes muscle and character becomes legacy. I'm Chris Bean, martial artist, coach, and relentless believer in growth. If you're here to sharpen your edge, lead with integrity, and build a life that echoes beyond your years, you're home. You can find the podcast on social media at PrestigiouSPod. You can find me at Chris Bean Official, and the email for the podcast is prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. Now, Stacey, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
Well, I think that entrepreneurs start their business because they want to be successful. And usually success looks like a combination of financial success and freedom, and having that freedom that a job doesn't allow. And so I think people start their business for that. And then once they get into their business, they see that those don't always work so well together, the money and the revenue and the freedom. And so what we're going to do today is talk about how you can increase your revenue and increase your freedom, because that's something that's really important.
Now, you help entrepreneurs add a zero without the hustle. What can you break down, what does that mean actually in practice? How does that look?
Yeah, so there's so many things to say about adding a zero without a hustle. I think the first thing to think of is that this has worked for people that have taken from 0 to 6 figures, people that have gone from 6 to 7. And I've even had multiple clients have gone from 6 to 8 figures using the same framework. So it doesn't matter where your listener or person watching today is on that cycle, but this will work for them. And so what I did is I looked at, when I was creating this framework, of what were those things that we did with each and every person. And the first thing we started with is lifestyle design. So that's a little bit, even though I've been a coach with Tony Robbins and, very high level coaching and consulting, I break it down and start with lifestyle design first, because if you build it all without putting that first, then you're going to have a business that's hustle first.
And really what that does, that kind of sets their values and the inside, let's say, environment correct before they start doing anything to the outside.
Absolutely. And it also, we build it within what they want. So like for myself, when I was starting my business, when I started my business, I didn't have kids, but I knew that I wanted to be able to have that freedom to be home when my kids got off the school bus. And it turned into, like, my kids were both athletes and theater. And so you don't even know all that time suck that comes with that I wanted to be able to be there for that and be involved. And that came from my dad passed away at 56. And so that's what's inspired this whole Add a Zero Without the Hustle, because my mission is to give entrepreneurs back to their families so that they don't get to the end and say, oh, I wish I would have, and, have a lot of shoulds that they should have done beforehand.
Right. Because, and like you said, they have on the onset, they think, oh, I'm going to have my own business. I get to set my own hours. I can kind of do whatever I want. And then you get into it, and it's not at all like that if you don't have the systems in place to strategically make that happen. So starting with that life design to make sure the inside environment matches the outside environment is kind of the first step. And then once they can kind of do that, then they can have that time back and they can spend with their family or however they wish.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I always tell my husband that, there's always more work. Right. And so that's the thing as an entrepreneur, is that we're never going to get somebody to say, okay, ding, 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 the bell's ringing, you can go out of your office, right? Or close that laptop. And so we need to have, as the business owner, that wherewithal to design what we want and then stick to it, which a lot of times is a little challenging because there's always more things that we want to do.
Right. And I think entrepreneurs, especially early on, entrepreneurs really have a tough time setting a boundary between where work life ends and where home life needs to start. And so having an opportunity to close that laptop lid and say, listen, I'm done for the night. Because you're right, there's always more work. There's always going to be something else to do. There's some more tweaking, more changing, more testing, whatever those things are. And if you're in that attitude that you want to grow the business as fast or best as you possibly can, then that part of your brain never turns off. But you need to be able to at least physically put some space between you and that device or whatever that is that you're working on in order to have some time with your family, because otherwise you're all work and no play, and nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. And now, I mean, since laptops are so prevalent now, you have your phone with you everywhere you go. It is a lot harder to draw that digital line in the sand of closing it down.
Okay, so bring me in. You talked about the life design. What does that look like? How do you work on that first step to design the life in order to get them to where they want to go? Maybe give me 2 or 3 insights in that.
Yeah. So the first thing is deciding what you want. And it sounds really easy, but it is way harder than it sounds because there's a lot of cultural impact of what you think you can have versus what you really want. And so a lot of it is giving yourself permission to want what you want. Like, for example, I was saying, hey, I want to be there when my kids get off the school bus. I want to have, like my daughter was a national level gymnast. So I literally would design that I would host events in cities when she was competing in other countries, right? But I got to do that because I said, you know what, this is important to me that I'm supporting her as she's competing. And it's also important to me that my business is not stagnant and, at the expense of my personal life. So I think it's really important to really think of what you want, what you don't want, to get really clear. Like in my mastermind, a lot of times we're saying no to things. And so it's really good to have a no list of like, what is a no for you? And write those things down so it becomes easier when those things happen that you could be like, yeah, no, this is a boundary. This is the standard I've set for myself. And so that you can say no much easier to the things you don't want so you can get what you want.
Okay, well, having a no list, that's something that I don't think most people have or even think about. But what a wonderful way to do that, because when you have a no list, you think what you're doing is you're confining your space so much that you're not going to be able to do very much. But however, what really happens is you have a list of things that are non-negotiables that you don't do at all. Those are the no's. That's a no list. You don't do those things. What that does is it actually frees up so much more time because you're not bogged down by all the things that you would otherwise say yes to, because you go back to that list and say, yep, it's on my no list. I don't do that.
Yeah. And as an entrepreneur, we have so many swirls that are always popping up and we think everything looks like an opportunity, right? So it's really important to say like, okay, I am using this tool. I'm going to say no to every other tool that comes up, right? Or I'm using this tool or this strategy for a year before I look at any other strategies or tools. Because I think that, especially now with social media and all the input, you're getting served all of these ads. You're getting served all of these gurus that are saying, oh, no, that's not the way. Do it this way, do it that way. And so I think it's very clear that you can stay focused. And I think even with looking at mentors, right? And it was made very clear to me a few weeks ago when Tony Robbins interviewed Alex Hormozi. Did you see that interview?
I have not yet.
So Alex Hormozi is a marketer. He started out in the gym industry. He's grown a business to $100 million. And he is the epitome of the hustle bro, right? He is go, 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 go. No time for vacation, no time for personal life. He works with his wife, so that makes it easier. But he admitted on this interview with Tony that he thought that he had to suffer and that his whole business was like to suffer. And so I think that's really important when you're looking for a mentor to follow. Is like, are you following somebody that's like the suffering way? Or are you following somebody that's like have, profit and revenue and also have your life? So I think that's really important to stay focused on what you want.
Well, and that's not a very uncommon thought or belief for entrepreneurs. They think that part of operating their own business is they have to suffer, and that's par for the course. They have to do that, and that's a really interesting kind of take on that, because now in this day and age that we live in, with AI being what it is, and us knowing what we know about systems and how to integrate systems into the business, if we can do it correctly, and I think we can, it can be designed correctly, we don't have to suffer nearly as much as those people that came before us, because we can learn from all of the mistakes, all of the successes that they've done, and we can kind of duplicate and deploy, find out what works, what doesn't work, and then recycle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it does come back to that mindset of thinking that you don't have to suffer, because even with all the tools, that work tends to expand to the amount of time you've had allotted. So it's like, all right, AI is now helping you with this, but they're like, oh, but now I'm going to go do this. So they fill it up with other things. And I think it's really important. One of the things that we focus on in my mastermind is revenue generating activities, right? So there's what one of my old coaches 20 years ago used to call the BS funnel. And it's that BS funnel that you're constantly just like, oh, I have to tweak this. I have to change my website. And you're never, of course, there's always things that you need to optimize and improve. But if you stay stuck in that cycle, then you're not focusing on the revenue generating activities that you need to do to get your business moving forward.
Right. It's almost like you have to get free and clear enough that you can poke your head up to be able to look around to see what's out there. Okay, I'm going to put my head back down and get back to work.
Yeah, there's way too many poking their heads up all the time, but I think it more looks like their heads down looking at their phone.
Yes. Now, Stacey, most business owners chase new marketing, but you talk about some hidden profits. What do you mean by hidden profits, and what can a business owner do to try to find those?
Yeah, so hidden profits are ways to rapidly increase your revenue without doing any more marketing or advertising. And this came about, I was at the very first Business Mastery with Tony Robbins and Chet Holmes. And he had a conversation with this gentleman, and the guy was in the hot seat for coaching. And he said, I've tried everything and nothing worked. And so Tony looked at him like, okay. And so Tony said, well, what have you tried? And the guy said, well, I've tried like 3 things and nothing worked. And Tony said, well, you said you've tried everything and nothing worked. This is not everything. Can you imagine saying that to Tony Robbins?
On stage in front of people. Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
So the guy said, well, I've tried it 2 or 3 times. And Tony said, well, why did you stop? And the guy said, well, I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the money or the team or the time. And so Tony said, have you ever seen somebody that's come to this country with less than you that has accomplished more than you? And the guy said, yeah, you see them all the time, like on Entrepreneur, Success Magazine. And he said, well, what was the difference? And this sentence this is where the hidden profits was born, is that he said, it's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness, right? It's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of resourcefulness. And these people didn't have credit cards when they came to this country. They didn't speak English. They didn't have a college degree. There were so many things that were not in their favor, and they still, and so that sentence became really important to me, because at the same time, it was the last recession, and my business owners that were my coaching clients were having funding cut off. They were having orders being canceled. And all of a sudden, their businesses were like going down rapidly through no fault of their own. So as their coach, I said, oh my gosh, how can I become more resourceful for my clients to help them find this revenue? And that's where the hidden profits came about, that we started looking at, well, where can we create more revenue without more marketing? Because marketing is usually a cost, especially back then when there wasn't the social media. So I'll give you an example of one. Would that help?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So one of my clients came to me, and he was an auto parts store, and he started having some big national players come into his neighborhood, right? And they were advertising on TV all over the place, billboards, the whole kit. And so when he filled out his questionnaire, because he was a new client, he was really in a panic, because he had this business for, I want to say, about 30 years. And when he filled out the questionnaire, he talked about his team and how his team wasn't really good and they weren't implementing anything, and he was really frustrated. So when we went into the first call, I was like, all right, we're going to have to clean house and get rid of all these employees that aren't pulling their weight. And when I approached that subject, he said, I can't. He said, they've been with me forever. They're my uncles. They're my nephews. They're people that I go to church with. He's like, I couldn't hold up my head in church if I let all these people go, especially with the way the economy is right now. So I'm like, all right, we have to be more resourceful, more resourceful. And so what we did is we put an upsell in his business. One question increased his sales 48% from one question. So for the people listening to the out here, you might be thinking, well, that sounds really simple. And it is, but it's also simple not to do. And most people aren't doing it. So what I would say is take your top product that you have and look at what is a natural upsell for that product and start implementing that on a regular basis. That's just one of the examples of a hidden profit that most people aren't seeing.
Right. And oftentimes I think that the founders, the owners of the business, sometimes they get their roles situated incorrectly, because I think the founder of the business needs to be up on the crow's, as if you're on like a ship, up on the crow's nest, kind of pointing everybody in the direction, and they need to have tried and true people that are steering the ship and scrubbing the decks and do all the things. But if the business owner is on the deck scrubbing the deck, then they can't look up to see where they're going, where the heading is. And I say that because I think that in a business, there's multiple ways to be more resourceful, to find those hidden profits. But if the owner, the founder, is in the mix doing the work, scrubbing the decks in that metaphor, then they're not going to be able to see what's in front of them. They're not going to be able to see the direction the ship is heading. And then they're not going to be as resourceful as they could otherwise be, because they can't see where those things are. So I think maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of this is maybe the founders, the owners, the CEOs need to take a small step back to look at their business from the outside perspective to see, okay, where are the next steps that the clients can move into? And then if there is like a wall in front of them, but if they're all buttoned up against this wall, listen, we need to make a door there. Let's open that up. Let's make another step there. There's an upsell, and then there's another upsell. But if they're in it so much, it's hard for them to see where they're at.
Yeah, I really resonate with your analogy of swabbing the decks, right? Because there's always more decks to swab, right? It's never ending. And I think that entrepreneurs do get out there with their mop and they're swabbing the decks. And I think that's the value of having coaching sometimes, is because you have this appointment, whether it's in, a one-on-one or in the mastermind, you have this time set aside that you're going to get up on that watchtower and look okay, where are we going? Are we still headed this way, or are we going this way? Which way is the boat even going?
You also have that fresh perspective from the outside. And I think sometimes we, as the owners, we need that fresh perspective from the outside, because we are looking at things through tunnel vision most of the time, or through one set of lenses, and somebody else could come in and be like, wow, what are you doing? Take those glasses off. Look right here and right there and right there. But we need that outside perspective in order for that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we get stuck in ruts, right? Myself included, right? You get stuck in one way of doing something and you're like, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. And you don't see these other avenues that could be out there. Unless they're squirrels. Sometimes they're like, whoa, I see that. And so I think it's important to have that outside perspective.
And, Stacey, I think this moves right into the next area beautifully, because the next part is, I think founders need to find a way to optimize their existing systems instead of always trying to add new tactics. And what might be some steps that a business owner could do in order to do that correctly for you, do you think?
Yeah, one of the first things I do with clients is we do, and this came from Chet Holmes, who is partners with Tony Robbins with Business Mastery. And we used to always do a workshop on what's stopping your company from going. And it sounds really negative to start out with doing that. But what it did was it uncovered all of the things that were stopping you, both real things that were stopping you. It also uncovers the hidden mindset things that are stopping you. And you get this list. And I've done this with hundreds and hundreds of entrepreneurs. So I've seen this so many times. And some people are like, oh, there's only these 3 things that are stopping me. And that's the scary part. I hate when somebody would be like, oh, it's only these 2 things or nothing's stopping me. I like it. Sometimes these entrepreneurs would come with 27 things on their list, right? And we would pull it out of them. And so I think it's really a good idea, after people watching this or listening to this, is to take a piece of paper. And I love to use a pen and paper, even though I'm an AI person, and really write down what is stopping you. It's is it not enough time? Is it my belief? Is it that my marketing isn't converting? Is it that I try one thing and then I stop too soon? Is it that I don't have a team member to back me up, when I'm creating new things? Is it that I'm, doing too much tech behind the scenes that I should have somebody else to outsource to? get that whole list. And then what we do is then we prioritize that list because they're not all top of the list. And so we look at, all right, what are some things that could be really quick wins, which a lot of times are the hidden profits, like ways to increase that revenue. And then what are the things that are like the most important that we need to fix that are going to help you get to where you want to go faster? And then we start working on those things in priority order.
And of course, as it's been said, if you write down your problem, write it down as clearly as you possibly can, you're 90% of the way solving that. So by doing that list of the things that are stopping you, you're listing out all the kind of problems that you have. And then the excellent next step that you have is to prioritize that. Prioritizing the list, then, okay, what is most important on this list? Or another way to look at it is, where are my quick wins? And where do the quick wins lead to those hidden profits that I'm just already not getting, that I could already be getting if I just made that next step? So I think that having that list on the surface does seem maybe a little bit negative as you go about it. But the outcome, the projected outcome, the desired outcome to that is to solve all of those problems. But you can't solve the problems if you don't know where they are. Like this was really interesting for me to think about. I know what I know. I know what I don't know, but I don't know what I don't know, right? There's a whole nother category out there.
Yeah.
And I think that doing that list like that brings people into those things that you don't know, because then you start to think about it in a much different fashion, to think about, okay, where are the issues at? Where are my stumbling blocks at? Where are the problems at? Okay, now where's the quick wins here? Oh, wow, look at that. All right, now where's the big overlasting? And then you can kind of work on those things. And what that does too is that gives you and your team, if you bring them in, a list to accomplish. Okay, listen, this is our heading. These are the things we need to work on. These are our projects that we're trying to solve right now. Pow. And then you bring your team in, then it's a cycle. Then you can break free from that.
Yeah. And I think that's so good the way you broke that down. But I think one of the things that sometimes people do is they'll say something like cash flow is their issue, right? But then when you look deeper, like if you look deeper to cash flow, are they making enough offers? Is their offer differentiated? Do they have a strategic positioning in their market, right? Are they making enough sales calls? Are they putting out, so you're going to uncover, like, the problem might be, cash flow, but the things underlying that, we can really pull those out and see, okay, which one of those do we need to solve for first?
And so maybe another step is that, okay, you list out the problems, you put them in some sort of a hierarchy. And then you have a why that's associated with them. Like, why is that a problem? And maybe you ask that why to that specific problem or specific issue a couple times to kind of drill down what the root cause of that is. Then you can work on solving the root cause as opposed to just putting a Band-Aid over whatever. Yeah,
because some of them are like a big thing like cash flow that has so many things underneath it. And some of them is like, well, my funnel's not converting, right? But even a funnel not converting could be the fact that you don't have enough traffic to it. Or it could be that you don't have your perfect client identified, or your pricing could be off. So it lets us dig in and see what are the things that can be fixed and done quickly.
And of course, as we're working on optimizing these existing systems, the better your system can run, the better your business can run, the more efficient it is, the more revenue is going to be on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I usually suggest my clients do is to break their company up into buckets, right? So what are the focus areas in your business? And I know a lot of times if you're an entrepreneur and it's like, oh, it's me, myself, and I, right? You're the chief cook and bottle washer. You still should break your company into focus areas. And what I would suggest is, because you tend to go with what's the most comfortable for you. So some people might be like, oh, I'm really a techie and I'll be all day, all night in tech. Somebody might be like, oh, I'm going to be doing marketing all the time. Somebody else might be, I'm going to do customer service all the time, right? So if you break your company into these focus areas, what you should do is have a meeting on each of these focus areas, even if it's just you. So for example, you want to look at marketing as a focus area. Well, how often do you need to be looking at your marketing? Should it be every week? Every 2 weeks? Maybe you want to have a focus area that's team, right? And you're looking at, how is my team performing? How are they? What's my next hire that I need? But really putting this rhythm for yourself so that it's not just all scattered, that you're like sporadically looking at things, but to do it on a regular basis so that like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to think about this today because I have a meeting on my calendar to go over this, next Tuesday. So it makes you feel more comfortable too, that you know that these things are going to get handled and not just spur of the moment that you have an idea. Oh, I should go check that. And that's how you get off track a lot of times.
Well, and the wonderful thing about that's really interesting, because what that does is too, that gives you the opportunity to free yourself up in the moment, because listen, I don't have to worry about this thing right now. I have a meeting on Wednesday. I'll do that on Wednesday. And you just, and as you go, you're just collecting, maybe you jot down or whatever that thing is, a couple of ideas. Then you sit, even if it's just you, like you said, you're just you have a brainstorming session, you go through, you look at all, and maybe brainstorming session is a little bit funny to say, but you have a meeting with yourself to look at all of the things that you wrote down. Okay, listen, I need to tackle this, and I tackle this. And as you get more comfortable with that, then you don't have to feel like you're putting out a bunch of fires over and over, all at one time. You have, listen, I have time set aside for that fire. I have time set aside for this fire, and fire is, anyways. But you see what I'm saying? You have that time set aside for that, so you can compartmentalize those areas of the business, and it's not all overflowing into one, which is who you are, and then it breaks down who you are as a person into, listen, I'm a person who runs this business, and the business is broken down into all of these buckets, and I have time set aside to focus on this bucket and this bucket and this bucket.
Right. And like you were saying, like optimizing our system. So instead of saying, oh, I'm going to optimize my system, and that's like you get your head down and you're just thinking of that, it's like, okay, well, maybe you have an hour a week set aside for that. And the other thing I when I worked with Chet Holmes, he was charging like $50,000 to $100,000 per month for consulting. And then it went on to like $1 million. And one of the things that he did when I was lucky enough to mentor with him is that he had the coaching meeting, and it was on that calendar Monday at 4:00. You don't go to the dentist. You don't go to the gym, whatever. That is like a meeting that is blocked off on your calendar. And so what happened is you would have an idea, right? And you'd be like, oh my gosh, I have this great idea what we can do to improve this, blah, blah, blah. And see, you're going off after this great idea squirrel, right? All these squirrels sound like really good ideas when they come in front of you. And you would send Chet an email and be like, Chet, I have this great idea. We could do this. And he would literally send you back the email in the subject line, unread, bring Monday. And so the first time that happened to me was the last time it happened to me.
Yes. And that's by design,
I'm
sure.
I'm not wasting his time, and I'm not looking like an idiot. But as a business owner myself, I, follow those squirrels because they look like good ideas. So instead you're like, oh, I have a new idea of what I can do with my tech stack because you saw something or you listened to a podcast. Great. Put it in your tech meeting focus area. Right? That next Tuesday, when you have that tech meeting, you're like, oh, is this still a good idea? And a lot of times, some of those good ideas, once they have time to sit in the parking lot for a little bit, they're not as exciting.
Yeah. Right. And given those opportunities to kind of squash the excitement that's around that idea is a really good idea. Now, Stacey, as you look at a business, right? Let's say you are hired to look at a business. Where is the first place that you're going to examine and try to find revenue that maybe is hiding in plain sight?
Well, this is one of the biggest, there's actually two hidden profits that come up a lot. So I'll give you, the first one came from what I call the $700,000 mistake. And I'll give the listeners a way to get information on that at the end. But what happened was I had a client and he canceled his coaching call, which very rarely happens because people have invested a lot of money in coaching. They show up, right? Mm-hmm. And he said to me, Stacey, I'm so sorry I canceled, but I had a new client. I had $100,000 sale. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a good reason to cancel your call. It was definitely worth it, right? And he said, this is not a happy moment. And I said, well, I'm a little confused. How can $100,000 sale not be a happy moment? And he said, well, because this new client was a past client who's been going to my competitor for the last 7 years. Hence the $700,000 mistake. So when he saw that this person had been spending this money with his competitor for the last 7 years, it made him crazy. So for the people that are listening or watching, it's to look at where are these past clients that you have not reactivated. This is what I call the come on back strategy. And the reason that it's important is people that are business owners, they think, oh, well, they know where I am. Like if they need a coach, they'll come back to me. If they want to go in a mastermind, they'll come to me. If they want to, whatever your business is. And that's just not true because there's so much noise out there. There's noise. So you're competing against all your competitors, but there's also a fear there for the client to come back, right? Mm-hmm. There's a fear of judgment, right? So I always think about if you're a hairdresser, right? If you're a woman and you go to a new hairdresser, most women that go try a new hairdresser will not go back to their past hairdresser because they cheated on them, right? And that's how they see it in their heads. And I've asked hairdressers about this. And I said, let me ask you this. I said, I'm curious because I talk about this come on back strategy. And they said, oh, we understand that sometimes we can't fit you in, or you want to try something new, or somebody recommended. You are always welcome to come back in our chair, always. But the majority of people, consumers, will not do it because of shyness. And so what you want to think about is that your customers, clients also have this shyness, that they went off and tried something new and different, and now they're coming back. So you want to give them permission, like, hey, I'd love to have you back. You can give them a special offer as a returning client. But this is somewhere that one of my clients had taken my hidden profits class, and it was in December, and she was in the very worst niche for the come on back strategy in December. Can you guess what it is?
Lawn care.
Oh, that would be a good one. That would be a good one. She was in weight loss, right? And so weight loss in December, most people do not want to lose weight in December because they want to eat grandma's cookies or, all the things, right? Parties. So I said, well, I'm not sure that this strategy is going to work because it's December and people don't really want to lose weight. I mean, they want to lose weight in December, but they don't want to do anything about it in December. And she's like, I really want to try it. So we did this come on back strategy. We gave them an offer. We gave them permission to come back. And it's especially sensitive in things like weight loss because people go try something else or they've failed and they've gained their weight back. They've slipped backwards. And a lot of clients, businesses, your clients have slipped backwards. You give them permission to say, it's okay. Come on back. She increased her sales by 50% in 1 month, had her best month ever in the worst month of the year by giving people permission to come on back and giving them a reason to.
That's such a keen insight there, because I think that as the business owner, you're right. They just think, oh, they know where I'm at, and they're getting the email drip, or they see my videos on social media or whatever, that's enough. But the permission aspect to it, I think, is really key, because there is a little bit of a feeling like, oh man, I let them down, on the consumer side or the client side. So I think that having that permission in connection with a special offer, I think, is really key, because then that brings that down. Oh, listen, they're not actually mad at me. It's okay. I can go. I really like that. And what that does is that reframes that whole situation for them as the client side to say, oh, it's okay. It's okay that I come back. It's okay that I try to do something different. And it changes that relationship a little bit. So it allows them to say, oh, it's okay to come back. And that permission aspect, I think, is so often overlooked, and I've not even actually heard that before. But what a key insight for that. And okay, so that's the first one. You said there's two. What would be another one?
The other one would, so the upsell we already talked about. So that one's the come on back strategy, and then the third one is what I call the fear factor. And so you can see that there's a common thread of the mindset stuff plus the strategy and the revenue generation. So the fear factor one is raising your prices. So most business owners are very hesitant to raise their prices. I've had clients that have gone 7 to 10 years without raising their prices. And so again, it's looking at the business from up there on the watch, right? Instead of swabbing the decks. And so they need to raise their prices. So the client that had been 7, I think he was about 10 years, the one client, and he had an actual physical product, which was even worse, right? Because he was absorbing all of these price increases from his suppliers for his clients. And so we really had to put a strategy in place that would allow him to raise prices without having it be a major blow up with his clients. And so I would tell you, if you're scared to raise your rates, I have a whole program on raising your rates. You need to do it now, right? Like they say, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. The second best time is now. And the same thing with your rates, because if you keep waiting to raise your rates until it's a good time, there is never a good time. And the thing is the longer you wait, the more the inflation, the cost of living, all of that has gone up, and you have, months and years of profits that you're giving away by not, raising your rates as, on a regular basis.
Well, and raising your rates is such an interesting thing too, because I think there's a couple layers to this, but I know in a business that I was in previously, we had clients that would come to us, and we did start to slowly increase our prices. And one thing that we noticed right off the bat was the type of clientele that we were getting, before we raised the rates were one type, but as we raised the rates, we got a whole different type of clientele. And that different clientele was actually a little bit easier to work with. They actually did the things that we asked them to do in a timely manner because they were paying more for it. So it was more valuable to them because the value was based on the money that we sent. And I say that because if you are having struggles with trying to catch up with the client or to get them to do the next step, or however that works for you in your business, raising the rates doesn't seem like it's the natural step, but raising the rates can bring you into a whole different type of clientele, because when a product costs more, the type of people that go after that product are much different than the other type. And then the other thing is when you raise the rates, the ask for the client is going to be much easier to be fulfilled on. They're going to do the things that you ask them to do because they want to get their money's worth. Whereas if it's cost almost nothing or low, then that same type of atmosphere isn't there. But if you change the rates, if you make it higher, it doesn't seem like on paper it works, but if you change the rates, it brings you into a whole different type of clientele, which might just be the best thing for your business.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen this. You might have seen the meme that people are putting out, like a $5,000 client. And it's like, oh, I hope this works. Oh, I'm not sure. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like all these excuses, fears, and worries. And then a $50,000 client is like, ACH sent, money transfer sent. And it is the total difference is that people, when they have this level of belief that they buy in at a higher level, they're going to actually take the actions that are going to get them the results too.
Yeah. All right. Now, Stacey, I want to move to AI because AI is such a interesting thing in the business world and in life in general right now. Now, as it relates to business, how can AI be integrated in a way that saves time, enhances personalization without sounding robotic and transactional?
Yeah. So that's a whole lot of questions all in one. So yes. I think first of all is to look at, it's kind of like doing the list of, what's stopping you from growing. But I think it's important to look at what in your business you want to get more efficient with. What can you use AI for? And some of the things to look at is obviously content and things like that. In one of the biggest things that my clients have been really successful with is requests for proposals, that they've been able to do that. I have a system for that, a workflow that helps them, go from talking to the client to sending out that proposal that used to take weeks. Because some of my clients, they're sending, they have a request for a proposal that's 40 pages that they have to complete. Yeah. So they've gone from it taking weeks to taking like a few days. And then they don't send it right off to that prospect right away, but they've saved all that time, right? So those are some of the things that people are using it for. And then anything that you're doing more than once in your business that you could create like a custom GPT or something that you're using that same process over and over again. So those are some of the overarching things. In terms of not sounding robotic, I have a proprietary framework that I've come up with, and it's actually based on my 25 years of business consulting experience. And so that is what's a little different than most AI consultants is most AI consultants are like, here's this really cool tech, go do this with it. And for me, because I worked with Chet Holmes and Tony Robbins, I take a step backwards. I'm up there on the pole with you, like looking at the whole business. And I'm saying, okay, like, let's look at this strategically. So my framework is called the SASSY AI framework. And so the S stands for strategic. So before you write any content, before you do anything, you need to think, what is the strategic objective that I have for this piece of content, right? So And most people think, oh, I just want to get clients or I want them to buy. No, you need to be thinking more strategically than that. So do you want to position yourself as an expert? Do you want to, as Russell Brunson says, throw rocks at your competitors, right? To make, against something that they're doing? Do you want to help with a buying belief that they need to have in order to invest in your product or service? Do you want to just have them, think about this and open the thought pattern that this is possible to them to shift their thinking? So these are some of the things before you even start to talk to ChatGPT or Claude or whichever system you're using. This is all, it doesn't matter which system you're using, this SASE works. The second thing is that it needs to be authentic and attracting your perfect clients. And this is something in my mastermind that we laugh about because some of my clients, we've done their perfect client 6 or 7 times. And the reason why is that you're always getting at a deeper level and that you're going in there and really thinking about what does my perfect client think about this and say about this. And so there's a woman, Ash Ambridge, who I absolutely love. She's a copywriter. She wrote the Middle Finger Project. And she always says to do the chicken in the pot and the car in every garage. This was a presidential slogan back after the Depression. And what that means is that you want to get really specific because he won the election because people could relate to having a chicken in the pot and a car in every garage versus his competitor was honest and able, right? Tying back to Abraham Lincoln, which didn't help anybody. So you want to think about what is that language for your perfect client that they're saying. They don't want to be more successful. They don't want to be happy. They don't want to have more time. You need to be really specific about what does success look like? Success looks like you launch a product and you have clicks, you have people that buy, within the first day that you're sending out your emails, right? Success could be that you close your computer at the end of the day and go to your kid's soccer practice without opening it every 10 minutes to do another thing, but be very, very specific. Then the next step is stories. So what are the stories that you have in your business, in your life, that only you have? And this is a key distinction for AI because AI is not going to come up with your stories for you. Like it might come up with general stories that are out there in the universe, but you need to have your stories. And I'll give you an example, which actually ties to both. Is this gentleman and I met while we were in a spinning class, and he wanted me to come in and help him with his company. And so I had lunch with he and his wife, and it looked like a very good opportunity. And I said, okay. He invited me to come to his house to kind of go deeper, and his wife was going to be there. And I said, okay. I roll up to this house, and it literally was the biggest house I have ever seen. It had, I want to say 14 bathrooms and bedrooms, like 6-car garage, helicopter pad, the whole kit. Walked up to the door, 2 Dobermans greeted me. Now, would it make you any different if I said that this was a Russian?
Okay.
Right? And I said, And then when he started telling me what his other business was, I was like, this is not a perfect client for me. Right. And so this is an example of a story that, yes, he had money. Yes, he was willing to invest. Yes, he was like, let's go ahead and have you help me with my marketing and all business growth. But for me, that was not a perfect client. My alarm bells were like, ding, 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 how he made that money. And so that's a story that nobody else on AI is going to have about the Russian oligarch client. Right. And so think about what your stories are so that you can incorporate that into that SASE method. The next step is sell. So selling is not just like buy this stuff. It's what's the call to action. So again, being more strategic, you're not just like buy my stuff. You're like, right, what's the next natural step you want somebody to have? Is it to fill out this quiz? Is it to click? Is it to refer this to a friend? Is it to save it for later? Is it to download this thing? It's not just, selling is not just buy my stuff. It's really that call to action to kind of condition the people to take that next step with you. And then the last thing in the SASE framework is why, which stands for you, your own uniqueness. Like, what is your own uniqueness that, again, if you're talking to Claude or talking to ChatGPT or whoever you're talking to, like, for example, I love paddleboarding. I love hiking with my dog, right? All those things are very common for me. Like me being in a city, it's not really my thing. So they're going to know that I love to sit and watch sunsets, right? That's part of my thing, and go hiking and paddleboarding and have my family at the lake. And so that's integrated into my content that makes me versus anybody else out there in the world.
Okay. Somebody sits down, they go through that whole SASSY method, they get all the details. Then is the next step they take that and put it into whatever AI of their choices, and that way they're in a sense training the AI how they want the output to be. They're training the AI on what the role for the AI is and what the intended outcome would actually be from that action.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have some that are already done for you. But if you don't have the done for you, then what I would do is I would go through that SASSY method and make yourself a company document, right? Like, this is who I am. This is my brand. This is all the information you need about my company. This is all my information you need. I also go really deep on training the voice, because not everybody's voice is the same. So you put all of that in there. And then when you start a new project, you pop that in there so it remembers exactly the way that you want to talk. Like, for example, a lot of times I'll say something snarky, but I'll put it in parentheses in my copy, right? So I'll add like a funny thing after something I'm saying, like today I had posted a picture of me with Tony Robbins, with Gary Vaynerchuk from back in like 2008, 2009. And I held myself back, and I almost was like, and I finally learned how to take selfies, because the one with me and Gary V, like, you could kind of see up my nostrils, right? So, but that would be something that I would do. And my AI knows that I would do something funny like that.
And okay, so I am thinking about this in practical sense. So I take that instruction that I have, whether it's a pre-done one or it's one that I go through the list and build myself, and I make that the sort of custom instructions. I'm thinking like ChatGPT, because it has the custom instructions, and then that becomes my go-to chat for everything business related. And because that's in the custom instructions, that's like beyond the instruction. That's okay. So it has the instructions sent by OpenAI, and then the very next layer is that SASSY method. And then I go through and ask it questions, and it always refers back to that SASSY method. That way, all the outputs that it has in that line of chat are answered in that way.
Yeah. And I think with the custom instructions of ChatGPT, a lot of times I do more tone in the custom instructions and voice, like how is my writing style? And then I would use this also as a document. I keep it in my Google Docs or wherever. And like when you're doing a project, so say, for example, you're launching a project, you put that in there so it remembers it and it has it right there in front. Because I do think, like, I was using Claude the other day and it kept forgetting everything. And I was like, I've loaded the document in there. Like, why are you not, And so I always like to just remind it, so it stays in the frame that you want to have it using.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we're in a day and age where AI is in almost its infancy, which is odd to say because it can do so much already, but it frequently forgets whatever the previous instructions were after about 6 or 7 different levels of the next questions that you're asking, or next requests that you're asking. And we are in a day and age where we have to consistently remind them, refresh, hey, listen, I've already told you this. This is how I want you to output. And what I've done, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but what I've done is say, listen, I need you to output like this. And then I'll say, what do I need to do, or what can I do? What are the steps I can take in order for that to happen continually? Send. And then sometimes it'll say this, sometimes it'll say that. And I try to listen to do what it says. I don't know if it's right or not, but that's what I've tried, because I know that AI, the interesting thing about AI, and people often overlook this is so simple. If it's not doing what you want it to do, you just ask it, hey, what can I do? Yeah. What do I need to change? How do I modify the initial prompt in order for the output to look like this? Because that's really what I need to look like. And then it fixes the problem for you. And then you just reiterate and go again.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because in this case, when I was using Claude, I was planning a trip. And so it wasn't my regular thing that I had my SASSY method in there. It was like, this is the dates I'm going. This is the order of the places I want to go. And it was coming up with these weird things. And I'm like, where are you getting off the rails there, buddy? But I do agree, like, go in and ask it if there's something that's not right. And don't be afraid to like keep using this document over and over again with every process that you're doing. And, if people use multiple tools, you have this document that's very easily, using in multiple places.
Yeah. Now, Stacey, for leaders who feel stuck in that feast or famine that we talked about in the very beginning, that feast or famine cycle, they get stuck in that. What is maybe a key mindset shift that they can make to start to step out of that cycle?
Well, there's a few things. One of the things I see when people get stuck in the feast or famine is the thermometer or the speedometer, right? So like, for example, if you were driving your car and you put your cruise control on, right? And you say, I'm going 60 miles per hour. And then it puts on the brakes, it goes forward, right? Well, I see the same thing happening with business owners is they set their speedometer, thermometer, however you want to call it, at 10K a month, 50K a month, whatever that comfortable number is for them, right? I'm never getting below, 100,000 a month, but they have that comfort level right there. And what happens with the feast or famine is I see people are too comfortable with that number and they don't set that next number above it to go to. And what happens on a really visual thing that you can see is like, if you hit your number really early in the month, right? And you see this like with big sales organizations that somebody hits their numbers really early in the month and they're a 10K a month salesperson or business owner. And they're like, oh my gosh, I just sold $8,000. Well, guess what they do? They take their foot off the gas for the rest of the month, right? And they stop doing the things. They think that they have like some room to just coast, right? They're going down this hill, coasting down the hill. And so what I would say is keep your eye on that number, but if you hit it on the third of the month, don't take your foot off the gas, right? Because on the same thing, and you see this in the big sales organizations, is if you see somebody that's a 10K a month person and that they're at the end of the month and they're only at 7K, what are they doing? They're taking massive action the last 3 days of the month because they see themselves as this 10K person, a month person, and they're like, I have to hit that number again. So I would say like, if you're in the feast or famine, you're probably getting too comfortable with your number, your baseline number, and you need to keep inching that up. And you also need to look at what happens when you sell. Do you take your foot off the gas?
Well, Stacey, listen, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much. You helped to remind us that growth doesn't just have to be louder, faster, or harder. It really needs to be smarter. And, today we started to unpack what the hidden profit already inside the businesses look like. We help to refine positioning so that, you can attract those premium clients and use AI strategically as a multiplier instead of a distraction. So Stacey, as we're wrapping up, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways for the audience? And if they wanted to get in contact with you, to work with you, to learn more about you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So number one, you're a fantastic interviewer. You asked fantastic questions, which I love that we were able to get really deep. So the first thing I would say is don't just learn, implement. So I would say go back and watch this again or listen to this again and take notes and take action, because there are some really key strategies in here that if you just use those strategies that I gave you, you can make more money today, tomorrow. Then I would say you can go to moreclientsandcash.com. And from that moreclientsandcash.com, it is based on my book that's coming out, Hidden Profits. And it'll actually walk you through in your business how to do like the $700,000 mistake, the reactivation, the come on back. It'll teach you how to do the pricing and the upsell. So you can actually go in there and get my custom GPTs that are trained on my proprietary methods that you can start using right away. And then you can find me, Stacey Hylen, anywhere on the internet. So come follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you hang out on the internet and say hi.
Listen, I got to say, that is an awesome website name.
Oh, thank you.
That's very memorable. Very good. Hey, listeners, if this episode shifted the way that you think about scaling, share it with somebody who you think that needs that clarity. And be sure to subscribe and check out more at theprestigiousLabs.com. Until next time, build profit and presence.